I guess the first thing that I want to address real quick is why am I doing this video? I'm a designer, and about a year ago, I started writing things on Substack. Things that inspire me, things that I want to bookmark. I also write a little bit about my process, a little bit about my design thinking. But I also think that a lot of people, or maybe a lot of designers particularly, would rather watch a short video than read a very long article with a bunch of images and videos kind of embedded in between. I'm not great with video, as you can see, but technically that can allow me to show maybe more images and more examples of things that I went through. So hence this experiment. The term vibe coding has been on my radar for about a year now. I hear about it in different podcasts that I listen to. I see sometimes it on social media, and I even discuss it with some of my friends. And my issue with that was all the examples that I have seen were pretty bad. It looked like a train wreck. Somebody used AI to create either a website or an app that looked more like a meme rather than an interesting thing. And only after seeing one or two pretty good examples from people that I personally know who said that they vibe coded a specific thing, it actually inspired me to at least give it a try. This video is not going to be a tutorial. It's just going to be my personal story about my experience of using AI to create different design tools. Because when I posted some of my results on the social media, I had a lot of designers who reached out to me asking, how did I start? What did I use? What was my workflow? And at least I hope it will nudge and maybe inspire some designers to start creating their own tools. Now, as a quick disclaimer, I am fully aware of the negative sides of vibe coding. I heard it from my developer friends, and I've seen enough memes online about the negative sides of vibe coding. But this video is not necessarily about creating a final product that you deliver to the users. This video is about using vibe coding maybe somewhere in between just to create tools that are interesting or cool. My skills, I'm a designer first and foremost. I designed a ton of things over the years for clients and personal projects. I've built a lot of different apps and a lot of different experiences. But I always collaborate with a team of extremely talented developers where my main focus always remains on the user experience, the visual design, animation, motion, and things like that. So I don't know how to write code, at least today. So I've been walking around thinking of different ideas for me to start with. And as I was on the street, I decided that I'm going to stop by the nearest coffee shop to write some ideas down before I forget them. Once I approached the coffee shop and pushed the door, it squeaked very, very loudly. And I thought that should be my idea. So I sat down and sketched it out real quick here. I also realized that I never used Xcode in the past, and I wasn't even sure whether I would be able to follow instructions provided by AI to create an iOS app. And I needed something very, very straightforward and very stupid just to test out whether I can follow the instructions, copy-paste code, and make sure it runs on my iPhone. So for this first experiment, I decided to use ChatGPT. I was fully aware that there are much better tools to write code using AI, but I had ChatGPT subscription and I thought that that's what I'm going to start with. I just wrote the prompt and I described the idea, and I also told ChatGPT that I don't know anything about coding, I don't know anything about Xcode, so just please instruct me what to do. And it would just basically tell you, well, create a file, name it like this, copy paste the code that I'm giving you, and hit run. This is that original ChatGPT code, and this is actually Xcode with all the files that it would ask me to create and everything that I put there. Sometimes I would even ask ChatGPT to create certain parameters that would make it easier for me to change inside code. So for example, a different colors. It took me about 30 to 40 minutes of following the instructions and pasting code to get something fully running on my iPhone. So I called it the door. So essentially the entire app is just a simple door. I can tap anywhere on the screen and the door will swing wide open, revealing what's behind it. And it's just a camera feed. And I also made it work kind of like a real door. So if I tap anywhere on the left-hand side where the hinges are, the door is not going to swing open. But if I tap anywhere on the right-hand side, the door will open a lot. So as if I'm pushing a real door. For the sound, I just went on YouTube and I downloaded some random door sounds and I edited them in Logic. And I also asked ChatGPT to add the sounds into the app. Now, is this app useless? Absolutely. The fact that I could make that stupid idea work and actually run on my phone gave me confidence, and in retrospect, way too much confidence working on some other things that I had originally in mind. One of the ideas I had was to create a camera app that would at least try and replicate the Time Stretch series, photography project that I've been working on since 2022, and I've been doing it by hand, manually. So the idea was, well, can I maybe create an app that would replicate something like this visually? I knew that I wouldn't be able to cut out objects like it is here in the middle, but at least to create an overall scene, an overall look. I stick with ChatGPT for the time being, and I started giving it prompts. The entire process took me about a couple of days. So the first thing was to try and separate the scene into different objects and then apply this 1 pixel stretch line in between. So this is one of the earliest screenshots that I did, something that I've been working on in the first hour. When it comes to vibe coding, there are two things. To get something working very, very quickly and very primitively is pretty easy. But to get something working really good and the way you envisioned it is really, really hard, and it takes forever. No matter how I described everything to AI, it would refuse to subdivide the camera feed based on object that the camera sees. So it would give me predefined patterns, such as this one. You can see that all patterns just are basically lines coming up and down. And it took me quite a while to recognize the object, either by color. So look at the clusters of colors. If there is a lot of similar color, it's probably the same object. Look at size of the objects. If objects are bigger, create one rectangle around them. And if objects are smaller, make them smaller. So it took me about a day or maybe even day and a half to get to something that was at least similar to what I had in mind. So the other big issue for me was to figure out the performance of the app. Now, there are kind of two things. One, there is this subdivision of everything that the camera sees. And the better the quality you want to get in terms of subdivision and the amount of pixels on the screen, the worse the performance. So the app would kind of freeze after 5 seconds, or it would drain the battery very, very quickly. So trying to balance the preview and making sure it subdivides it correctly was one thing. The other thing was the file being saved on camera roll if I take a picture. At the very beginning, the file size was extremely small. So this is what I would save to the camera roll. You can see it's a tiny image. So there was a lot of prompts that took me to figure out the balance between the quality of the preview as I'm looking through the app, as well as the quality of the saved file into the camera roll. Because when it comes to the preview, I can have some leeway. I can play with the quality and maybe not have the best quality as I'm looking into the viewport of the camera, but I really want to have the best quality image when it's being saved to the camera roll. So I would say it took me about 2 days, maybe 3 days, to finally get to the result that I am kind of happy with. It's not exactly 100% what I had in mind, but it's still pretty fun to use, and especially that sound, and I recorded that from a synthesizer. Every time I just press a button, it makes my day. So in order to address the performance issue, I also had to add some extra functionality. I can also pinch on the screen anywhere to add more or less subdivisions to the scene. So this way I can make the app run faster if I have less subdivisions, but it also allows me to control the look or the design of what the camera sees. Now, when I go for a walk, I can just snap some random images that you can see here. They look very abstract, they look very pretty. I can sometimes use them as my wallpaper on the phone, which I actually do. And it gives me a nice feeling that I have a very cool looking app on my phone, and I just know that nobody else has this app. I always wanted to experiment more with video collages, and I kind of know how to make it by hand. I can film a lot of different videos, I can store them somewhere in my hard drive, I can bring them into After Effects, create different masks, apply masks to more videos and render things out, and it all seemed like a hassle just to do something very, very simple. So I thought of making an app that would allow me to do exactly this, but very quickly and just on my phone. And essentially it's an app that allows me to record video loops. Then I can use my finger to draw any type of shape I want on top of that video. Then I can record another video into a drawn shape. And I can just keep drawing more and more layers and record more and more videos into these individual layers. So this is the original Figma file in which I draw the schematic and in which I draw all the UI elements and all the buttons. And I also outlined the entire flow, just trying to understand exactly how the app will work, how many screens I need, and how many different type of interactions that I want to implement there. So in order to build all of that, I decided to use a different tool. The one thing I learned about ChatGPT when building a previous app is that it has a memory of a child. Basically, you copy-paste code and things seem to work. But the moment you start working on all the final details, such as optimization or such as performance or figuring out exactly how the filter should look and should work, ChatGPT starts to break things. It starts to giving you code that contradicts with the code it gave before. And specifically, that becomes very, very visible when you have multiple Swift files in your Xcode. So I started looking around at some other tools, and I've seen some pretty good examples where people used Claude. Claude is weird too. Even with a paid plan, it has some kind of weird limitations in terms of how much you can use it. It's still a big mystery to me how these limitations work. Some people say it based on the amount of messages. So sometimes I read that it's based on tokens. Sometimes I read it's based on the complexity of the prompts and the complexity of code that's being returned to you. I still have no idea. And the problem was that I would use Claude for about maybe 30 to 40 minutes, maybe sometimes to an hour, and just run out of the time I can use Claude. And I have to wait for 5 or 6 hours for the limit to reset. So with these limitations from Claude, I could only improve maybe one thing within a session. And that has essentially made this process really, really long and sometimes very, very frustrating. I think if you're a seasoned developer that knows how to create prompts in a way that you don't use a lot of tokens or you don't use a lot of something that basically affects your limit, I guess Claude is pretty amazing for you. But the one thing that was good about Claude is that it is much better at keeping context. For example, it would keep giving me multiple files, and then when I run into issues and I ask to fix something, Claude is much more aware about code base in general, and it would kind of not really provide fixes or new code that would conflict with something from other files. So here's the video of the final version of the app, and so you can see how it looks and how it works. In general, this experience taught me a very valuable lesson that if I need a tool, I can actually build one myself. It's a possibility that I didn't have before. I had to hire a developer or convince a developer to build something together with me, where now, if I think of something, I can do it. A couple of weeks ago, I had to create a video out of multiple exported PNG files. Almost think of it as a time-lapse video. And my brain was still thinking in an old-fashioned way. I need an app that allows me to create a time-lapse video out of multiple files. It took me about 30 or 40 minutes just looking for an app. If an app is free, it would lack particular functionality that I needed. So for example, controlling the amount of frames per second. There were also very robust apps that allowed me to create time-lapse videos, but they are either expensive or I have to download a gigabyte thing on my hard drive and install the app, and I just need something very, very quick to make a time-lapse video. And then the reality just slapped me on the wrist. I can just use AI to write a very quick script to make things that I need to make. So it took me about maybe 10 minutes with using ChatGPT and Automator on my Mac to create a tool that I actually can use in my process. I can select a folder where all the exported PNGs are. It asks me what's the frames per second I want, so maybe I want 8 frames per second. Then it asks me about like how good of a quality I want to have, so maybe I want to have this one. And after hitting export, the video is just being saved in the same folder where I had my PNG files. Another interesting thing where I can use code that's being generated by AI is in After Effects. For example, I've been working on this project that I showed earlier, and at some point I decided to animate some of the images that I did there. So this is the image that I spent animating by hand. So I had to draw every single shape by hand in After Effects. This effect basically that took me forever. So I decided to try to do the same thing again, describe exactly what I want to get, And I use ChatGPT just to write me expressions for After Effects that allow me to achieve pretty much the same results. And instead of taking me a day, it actually took me maybe just an hour or two to get this whole thing working pretty much in the same way as I was doing it by hand. So creating expressions in After Effects using ChatGPT is another super powerful tool that kind of opened up so many different possibilities for me that I didn't have in the past. And look, I guess for some designers, the idea that you can use AI to create your own tools is already obvious, and they've been doing it for quite a while. Well, good for you. I wasn't the person like that. I needed some visual inspiration that kind of planted the right seed in my head that I can do it. And hopefully this video here can work as an inspiration for some other fellow designers that weren't really sure how to start. And maybe after watching this video, you can try to make some tools that you wish you had. Maybe write some scripts, maybe write some Figma plugins, maybe write some apps that run on your phone that you can interact with. And hopefully you can find it helpful. Thank you.